the talent is always there. People who come through UPSC, the entire ecosystem of project delivery has to change.
You are the first Indian to be elected as a vice president, sir. Today, our engineers or students, they have lot of information, but they lack knowledge.
The quantum of manpower we are deploying for a project has also to increase if you have adequate knowledge to handle this situation.
They also avoid replying that question. Dream of Viksit Bharat 2047. They have taken a cognizance that implementation of multi-pronged strategic focused on zero tolerance to corruption.
One has to stand up that and defend his position.
जिन्हें नाज है हिंद पर वो कहाँ है और कहीं ना कहीं जो कुछ देश के लिए कुछ करना चाहता है वो कुछ डीमोरलाइज हो जाता है. Hello, dear friends. In continuation to series of talks on the topic past, present, and future of civil engineering profession on our YouTube channel Gain Talks, we are coming up with a general, healthy, and intellectual talk with a very cant personality, Engineer Dharmanand Chadangi ji, who has superannuated Director General from Ministry of Road Transport and Highways from a very humble background from a rural area of Odisha. So this talk will be a very useful talk for young budding engineers and especially the engineers who are working in government departments who clear the Indian engineering services and perform their duties over there. In this talk, we will be discussing with him especially on the topic past, present and future of civil engineering profession in Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. Dear friends, Indian highways are not built only with concrete and steel, they are built with character, competence and courage. जो आज हमारे गेस्ट हैं ये कॉम्पिटेंस एंड करेज के साथ कैसे एक उड़ीसा के नॉन डिस्ट्रिक्टिबल छोटे से गांव से उठकर मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट में डीजी के ओहदे तक पहुंचे जो कि सिंगल पोस्ट हिंदुस्तान में होती है और उस ओहदे को बखूबी निभाया और बड़ी इज्जत और सम्मान के साथ वहाँ से सुपरएनुएट हुए. ही इज़ द फर्स्ट उड़िया to be appointed as a Director General in Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. It is my privilege to welcome you, Engineer Dharmanand Shadangi ji, in Chandigarh on our YouTube channel podcast, Gain Talks. So welcome to you, sir, on this podcast channel, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Let me briefly explain you regarding the early life and career of Mr. Dharmanand Shadangi ji. धर्मानंद षडंगी जी का जन्म 1965 में उड़ीसा के एक छोटे से गांव में ब्राह्मण परिवार में हुआ एंड दैट विलेज इज वाज हैविंग अबाउट 30-40 हाउसेस इन दैट एंड हिज फादर वाज ए शास्त्री, मदर वेरी रिलीजियस लेडी एंड शी डिड नॉट हैव मच फॉर्मल एजुकेशन बट उनको ये पता था कि शिक्षा ही एक साधन है जो व्यक्ति के जीवन में उन्नति, तरक्की और उसको ऊंची दिशाओं में ले जा सकती है. सो उन्होंने अपने दोनों बच्चों को बहुत अच्छी एजुकेशन दी और एजुकेशन का नतीजा है रंगी साहब जो है धर्मानंद जी ये मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट में डीजी के लेवल पर पहुंचे. सो ये वो जानकारी है जो मेरे को पता था. तो शृंगी साहब, बिफोर वी स्टार्ट डिस्कसिंग रिगार्डिंग हाईवेज पॉलिसीज टेक्निकल डिस्कशंस, लेट अस गो बैक टू योर रूट्स. तो आपके जीवन के बारे में आप थोड़ा बताइए और मैं एक बार क्लियर कर दूं, हमारा जो फोकस सर रहेगा इट बी ऑन पास्ट, प्रेजेंट एंड फ्यूचर ऑफ सिविल इंजीनियरिंग प्रोफेशनल, स्पेशली विद रिस्पेक्ट टू एज इंजीनियर इन मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट एंड हाईवे. तो सर, ओवर टू यू सर. So regarding your roots and your early days of life.
I was born in a small village, Alikana, in Jagatsinghpur district of Odisha.
जी.
It's a coastal district, and my native place is around 40 kilometers from Paradip port. Those days, this area, though coastal, agricultural is slightly prosperous, but it was subjected to frequent cyclone and flood.
Okay.
So my native education started in my village school, primary school. Then I moved to the middle English school, which was from 6th and 7th. After 7th, there was one provision again funded by the central government for the rural students called National Rural Talent Search Scholarship. I qualified for that, and after qualification in the scholarship examination, I moved to a sub-divisional level school as per the requirement of that scholarship, and I started my hostel life from middle of class 8 till I passed class 11, and after that also it was hostel life till I concluded my post graduation in structural engineering.
So, sir, you just mentioned about the scholarship. What was the amount you were getting at that time under that scholarship, sir?
It was 1,000 rupees per annum. That's 4,000 in 4 years. And it was a kind of luxury at that point of time. I remember the day we were receiving scholarship, that was twice or so in a year. It was a very happy day for us and our friends who were not getting the scholarship. They were requesting or demanding us, let us go have some food, some restaurant, small restaurant. So it was a very enjoyable day. But getting that scholarship was also bit challenging. Many students were competing, and only two students from any block were getting the scholarship. So I was lucky to get it.
Shrangi Saab, these days we see children in nice school uniform and they go in school buses and they have all the modern facilities. So, in your childhood days, what were the facilities available with you in your village? And can you briefly explain for the young budding children that what were the facilities जो आपको उस टाइम मौजूदा थी, क्या क्या आपके पास सुविधाएं थी सर?
It was a government school. We used to walk to the school from class 1 onwards. And I remember we used to come in the middle recess to our house to have the food again, and again going in the afternoon, all walking, playing. The school was also thatched roof school, not much of facility. We were sitting in the floor, but our teachers were very good. And from the early childhood, there was encouragement from the teachers to read properly, to learn, and whosoever were carrying the words of the teachers, they definitely prospered in their life. And I am proud I was one of them.
Shirangi Saab, just before this, about starting the podcast, you mentioned two incidents, listening to which I became very much emotional also. Once you mentioned about the first footwear you got at certain age, and secondly, you mentioned about the light which you have seen in your house. So please narrate these incidents briefly, sir.
So those days we did not have electricity in my house, not even our village, till I was in class 6 or 7. But to my house it came much later. So we used to have our evening class or preparing the homework and all other things with lantern using kerosene oil, and it was a requirement particularly for the child who is to study to make the lantern ready before the evening, so that once it is evening we can fire it and start reading. But with that also people used to read. And I know some of my seniors, because I left village school from class 8, but we were up to class 11. With that lantern, I have seen my seniors reading up to night 11 or more than that. So, if somebody is willing, then there is no adversary. One can cope with the situation and still prosper. Footwear, you are right. I had my first footwear in class 7 when I went to appear the scholarship exam, not before that. But we never thought is an handicap. To tell you honestly, the background from which I came, economic adversity was never a handicap, because with that also, of course, nobody was remaining hungry to that extent, and not even the clothes and all other things. But whatever we used to have, there was a lot of happiness with that, and there was also high thinking with that limited resources or facilities which were in hand.
But you were contented, in other words, we can say.
Says we were contented.
So, you have shared the basic comfort which came very late in your life. How did growing up with scarcity shape your resilience and discipline, sir?
It is true, the scarcity also helped to build or shape my character to some extent, because from the childhood we are cautious that whatever money you have, how to spend it wisely, and not to resort to any kind of wasteful expenditure. uh, I remember my surroundings, my childhood, consuming anything like liquor or something was considered to be a sin. People viewed it like that. And I don't know whether you will believe me or not. In my life till now, I have never taken a drop of wine.
So it is unbelievable, sir. जो आदमी ये नेशनल लेवल पे जो मिनिस्ट्री में रहे और अलग अलग स्टेट्स में आपने काम किया, सो ये एक काफ़ी ऐसा गुण है जो कम लोगों में सर पाया जाता है. So my question, sir, is you regarding the receiving a national level scholarship at young age. It is a defining moment. How did that recognition change your self belief, sir?
True. Before that, I was always standing fast in the class, but among my friends, there was no competitor. But when I got the scholarship and I moved to the sub-divisional level school and stayed in the hostel, there were definitely good students. Even in those high school, I was not standing fast anymore in the class. Then there was a lot of competition in the school. The teachers were very high caliber. We respected them a lot. They were also teaching us with all their passion. I remember sometimes we had a teacher, let's say Bholanath Marana. He, if he was taking English class and time will be over, but still his study will continue till some other teacher come or somebody come to at the end of the class that it has to be finished. So I was fortunate to be in that school, and because of this scholarship, I moved there, and all my future aspirations, everything was kindled there only.
सर उस स्कॉलरशिप में जैसे आपने बताया कि 1000 रुपीज़ पर ईयर मिलता था, तो क्या सारे पैसे आप अपने पे खर्च कर देते थे या कुछ पैसा अपने पेरेंट्स को या अपने भाई के साथ भी शेयर करते थे सर?
Uh, Actually, we were getting 1,000 rupees, but it was not coming month-wise. So naturally, when the scholarship money was paid, it went to my parents, and every month, because that came bit late in a year. So obviously, it was not my money, and every month, naturally, my parents
Okay,
and
okay.
particularly my uncle, who was a teacher in Raurkela, he mostly funded my education. So he used to pay, but after I received, then it was spent in some household works or something like that.
सो इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि सर वो स्कॉलरशिप मिलने से पहले जो आपके अंकल थे, वो आपकी एजुकेशन को फंडिंग करते थे सर। ये भी एक ऐसी बात है सर जो आजकल कम मिलती है कि जो समर्थ रिलेटिव्स होते हैं वो बच्चों को कैसे उनकी एजुकेशन में हेल्प करते हैं। Sir, my last question in on this topic regarding your early days of life and childhood. Do you feel that hardship in early life builds a strong ethical foundation later in a public service, sir?
Yes, I believe so. Of course, there are many examples where people with richness or opulence in their childhood have much better character during their life in service or any other profession. But if somebody has toiled in his early life, then he very quickly or clearly understand the pain of others. So his attitude to life, his behavior with his colleagues, friends, and any general public remains something different. And of course, he always remain somewhat contented what he gets in life, although aspiration may be there and must be there, but there is never any kind of disheartening situation if you don't get something.
श्रृंगी साहब, अभी आपने अपने बचपन के जीवन के बारे में बताया। अब हम आपका जो इंजीनियरिंग कैरियर है उसके बारे में कुछ बात करेंगे। सो मेरा पहला सवाल ये है कि what prompted you to be an engineer, that too a civil engineer? सो ब्रीफली उसके बारे में सर एक्सप्लेन कीजिए। अदरवाइज और प्रोफेशंस भी हैं, यू वुड हैव गॉन टू मेडिकल एज ए टीचर, लायर। सो व्हाट प्रॉम्प्टेड यू टू बी एन इंजीनियर, दैट टू ए सिविल इंजीनियर?
मेरा हाई स्कूल में जैसे मेरे को एनआरटीएस स्कॉलरशिप मिला, उससे मैं डिस्ट्रिक्ट सब डिविजनल लेवल स्कूल को गया। उससे थोड़ी दिन अराउंड 6 मंथ्स मेरा राउरकेला में स्कूलिंग रहा मेरे अंकल के साथ। तो उसी दौरान जब स्टील सिटी राउरकेला को मैंने पहले देखा, इंजीनियर्स लोग देखा और जो भी सुनने के लिए मिला, तो आई वाज inclined to be an engineer from my short stay of around 6 months in the steel city of Rourkela. Somehow or other, I could not be so inclined to the medicine profession. And as students in those days, also these two were top in the list. So naturally, I got inclined to engineering. But civil engineering per se, I did not have any specific interest. Rather, it was a kind of something which was decided maybe by God, and it gave me very good reward because I could go for civil engineering in my latter life.
Sharangi Saab, you cleared the Indian Engineering Services exam, which is conducted by UPSC. So, what inspired you to prepare for UPSC, and how you came to know that there is a UPSC and Indian Engineering Services? As you explained, you were born in a small village और फिर आपकी स्कूलिंग हुई, तो वो इंसिडेंस काइंडली नरेट कीजिए कि यूपीएससी का कैसे पता लगा और आईईएस में कैसे गए आप, सर?
यूपीएससी के बारे में तो पता चल गया था जब हम इंजीनियरिंग कर रहे थे, बट द टाइम आई entered into engineering college, civil engineering was having very good opportunity in the state. People were getting job immediately leaving the college. But in 4 years, the situation dramatically changed. When I came out from the college, it was known that job is not readily available. And in the national perspective also, there was a lot of competition. Somehow or other, in my first attempt, before I left the college, I had applied for UPSC. I don't know why, but some other friends were appearing, and I also applied for that. And in my first attempt, I was somehow selected for the interview. So once that happened, somehow a feeling came to me. I can definitely succeed. Of course, in second attempt also I could not succeed, but the third attempt ultimately was success. And I remember because I had to put a lot of efforts in qualifying. My written score went quite off, but interview could not give me that much of support in my third attempt. Had it been so, probably those days everybody opted railway engineering services. I would have gone for railways, but not scoring maybe 8 to 10 marks in the interview helped me to remain this Minister of Road Transport and Highways. And here the career opportunity at our latter stage proved to be much, much better than the railways.
So it was you cleared the UPSC exam in third attempt, it means. सो आपका जो रिटन एग्ज़ाम था वो पहली बार भी पास हो गया था, लेकिन इंटरव्यू आपकी थर्ड एग्ज़ाम में थर्ड रेपिटिशन में क्लियर हुई सर। सो यूपीएससी या आईएएस करने के बाद सर एक जनरल लोगों का परसेप्शन है कि दोज पीपल हु क्लियर आईएएस और इंडियन इंजीनियरिंग सर्विसेज दे क्रिएट ए सेंस ऑफ सुपेरिटी, ऐसी जनरली लोगों की भावना है। व्हाट आर योर व्यूज ऑन दैट सर?
Sir, I will be dishonest if I say that there was no superiority. What happened when somebody qualifies any UPSC exam, maybe it is IS, income tax, or engineering services, there is some kind of feeling. Later on, I had also some sense that maybe I am a better engineer than those going to PWD or any other organization. But some years later in the ladder, I realized that entering into a particular service does not automatically grant you a superiority status. And I have seen people from different services have also gone much higher, may not be in the post, but in terms of their professional excellence, in terms of their knowledge, they have also gone to the top. So, the initial euphoria or the initial sense of superiority, I am sure I did not return till the end of my service, but initially, yes, it was there.
सर हम बात कर रहे हैं पास्ट प्रेजेंट एंड फ्यूचर ऑफ सिविल इंजीनियरिंग प्रोफेशन इन मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट एंड हाईवेज। सो जब आपने ज्वाइन किया वी से दैट वाज द पास्ट, उस टाइम जो सिविल इंजीनियरिंग प्रोफेशन मिनिस्ट्री में था, किस दौर से कैसे गुजरे, क्या क्या चैलेंजेस थे? नाउ रिसेंटली यू हैव सुपर एनुएटेड एज ए डायरेक्टर जनरल, दिस इज़ द प्रेजेंट टाइम। तो ये पास्ट और प्रेजेंट में क्या-क्या बदलाव आए, क्या-क्या चेंजेस आई? थोड़ा-सा ब्रीफली सर वो बताइए।
When I joined the service, the officers from Ministry of Road Transport and Highways were not into project execution. We are mostly involved in approving the design, approving the alignment, broad planning of the works, monitoring the progress to that extent, but not direct involvement in the field execution. But in the design, all other aspects of the project cycle, there were giants in our ministry. I remember I started my life or career in the ministry in the bridges directorate. That time we were having two separate directorate, one for road, one for bridge. And my chief engineer was Mr. S.P. Chakravarti, a very learned man, and his style of working was like whatever files go to him from different officers, maybe in 10-15 days he will call him once. And those days when he used to call, we are feeling a bit shaky. There will be innumerable questions, and when he is not satisfied on something, he will ask us to go to the library, find out the solution, and then modify accordingly. If we are not able to find out the solution in spite of the hints given by him, he himself will do. Of course, that day the file will be cleared from him, but after a lot of discussions, which created a sense of satisfaction, value in our life. Over the years, the workload increased manifold times, and the strength of the officers remained as such. So, more and more, the officers' focus shifted to management side, procurement, contract administration, but the real technical detailing or the real technical issues that has somehow taken a backseat. This is not a happy situation for me as well, but this is a reality. And it is also humanly not possible to handle so many projects and look into other pressing requirements while simultaneously giving justice to the technical matters.
सर यू हैड स्पेंट अबाउट 3 decades, लगभग 30 साल आपने मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ रोड ट्रांसपोर्ट में काम किया. यू ज्वाइंड देयर एज असिस्टेंट इंजीनियर, देन यू वर्कड ऑन ईपीसी, BOT, different type of scenarios of projects, and you have worked in states also, and ultimately you rose to the level of director general. सो इस जो आपका 30 साल का करियर का पीरियड था, लुकिंग बैक विच फेस और इनिशिएट ऑफ योर करियर डू यू फाइंड वाज मोस्ट फुलफिलिंग? आपके जीवन का वो कौन पीरियड था जो आपको जिसमें बहुत फुलफिलिंग महसूस हुआ हो?
When I was ADG and DG, naturally, one had the opportunity to deliver more. There was more sense of satisfaction, no doubt. But I still will say, during my career as superintendent engineer partly and chief engineer partly, for around 3.5 years, I was dealing with a World Bank funded project, National Highways Interconnectivity Improvement Project. It was, of course, two-lane projects. Technically, it was not so challenging, but I had a very small team, and World Bank requirement in terms of documentation was huge. I remember when I participated in the negotiation, there were 18 people from the World Bank side, and from ministry, I was the singular person with one officer from Department of Economic Affairs, and from our ministry, one person from the account service. So I had to answer the people with regards to environmental issues, social issues, procurement, integrity issues, and some people were there from Washington, apart from their Delhi office where we are having the hybrid meeting. So that performance as AC and chief engineer dealing with this World Bank project was in a sense highly fulfilling for me. I contributed a lot, even shaping the modifying the contract document to suit to their requirements. Those days, both item rate contract and EPC contract. EPC contract was just starting, and I was also deeply associated with that. But in item rate contract, to start a maintenance period of 5 years, this was my thought process, and I had to tweak the FEDIC Red Book to allow for 5 years defect liability come maintenance period. So there was a huge interaction with World Bank team day in and day out. And when I joined incidentally as AC for that project, it was almost in a sinking boat. And I could get the cabinet approval. I could conclude the loan negotiation successfully, and started the project in some of the packages, complete procurement. So that project was highly fulfilling to me.
Sir, in Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, you worked as a director general also. The hierarchy is that secretary is an IS officer, and next comes the director general, and even office of the ministry is also adjacent to the office of DG. So there are day-to-day interactions, many issues are there, and how you synchronize your working with IASs and minister as well, especially when you were DG, there was a lot of pressure of speeding the projects, getting the projects executed in a time frame, even before the time frame. So, how you managed your relationship with the IAS, minister, and as a DG, sir?
In government hierarchy, there has to be a engineer, then a bureaucrat, then minister. Each has its own defined role. It is true there is a lot of pressure, there is a lot of demand from the country as well to deliver more projects, to achieve more progress. We have, of course, a limited workforce. I remember when I took over the charge of DG, the election was in the offing. There was no doubt a lot of demand to complete the ongoing projects as much as possible and to finalize the sanction and bidding process so that more and more projects could be awarded. It is true, it was there, but again, we, and particularly insofar as I was involved, ensured even if spending more time, sometimes it dragged up to midnight, but exercise the due diligence before taking any next action. And I believe sometimes situation warrants that we cannot avoid, although one cannot do the same thing throughout the year, but in some parts of time it demands, and I fulfilled it. But there was never any compromise on the process of exercising due diligence.
So, do you feel that integrity also plays an important role in Indian your ministry में रोड जो engineering services है, integrity, does it play an important role to do a service properly and get superannuated with honor, sir?
Integrity is a issue which is not limited to once living the service on superannuation. Integrity and character, if you have, it continues much after you leave the service. Perhaps it continues to with your journey to the grave. I believe that both issues are important. Integrity is definitely a very key requirement in the public service, but simultaneously with the integrity, one's knowledge, skill, and competency, it is also important, and positive attitude to the project. Sometimes it's also seen that honesty leads to some attitudinal problem of not taking a decision, which is also not a service to the nation, I should say. One has to have a combination of honesty, knowledge, and attitude to take the proper decision at time.
Sir, since my childhood, now I am asking you a very serious question which people generally avoid to discuss on such platforms, and even people who retired from government jobs, especially on such a higher post, they also avoid replying that questions. But until and unless we discuss the issues on national platform, these cannot be resolved. So since my childhood, I have been listening regarding corruption, and it was in each and every department, all government jobs. But because we are from civil engineering profession भी उससे अछूता नहीं है, it is not untouched from that. सो अभी हमारे देश में अवर प्राइम मिनिस्टर हैज गिवन ए टारगेट और स्लोगन ऑफ विकसित भारत 2047 2047 तक, और उस विकसित भारत में मॉडर्नाइजेशन ऑफ रेलवेज, हाईवेज एंड एयरपोर्ट्स, देन स्मार्ट सिटीज, इट इज आल्सो इंक्लूडेड. To fulfill that dream of Viksit Bharat 2047, there is a they have taken a cognizance that implementation of multi-pronged strategic focused on zero tolerance to corruption. So I would request you in your own way, which way you are comfortable. So you give your views regarding that Viksit Bharat 2047 and corruption, sir.
Viksit Bharat 2047 requires a lot many things to be done
Okay.
in all domain of our public life. Zero tolerance to corruption is one of the tool to achieve those objectives along with many other tools. It is a fact that corruption, whether with the engineers, with bureaucrats, or any petty officials, whosoever may be indulging into this evil practice, he hinders the progress of the country. He hinders the benefits that should have gone to the public at large. He also directly or indirectly creates a lot of problems to his own life. I have seen people with such type of shady dealings, behaviors have repented also in latter life. So, what is there? There are many evil practices in the society. It is existing. We have to take cognizance of that. We have to take a very proactive step to, if not eradicate, but to minimize it, control it. And if it applies to how highway projects are being implemented, I have somehow a feeling if we see lack of quality and which is easily corruption is made accountable for lack of quality, my own personal experiences uh, in long 35 years service, yes, integrity issues is responsible, but side by side, the lack of knowledge, competency, skill, and lack of accountability. Many times, callous attitude because nobody ask you, nobody make you answerable, also create poor quality of construction. So we have to make endeavor to improve the knowledge, skill base of the entire workforce, whether in government, with the contractors, with the consultants. We have to make the people accountable, and parallelly, whatever the system of vigilance or enforcement agencies are there to enforce integrity, prevent corruption, that should also go parallelly. If we take all the three actions together with full force, then definitely we can have Vikasit Bharat quickly.
सर मैंने पीछे एनालाइज किया है आईईएस में, जैसे आपने भी कहा कि बड़े इंटेलिजेंट और टैलेंट, आई आल्सो एग्री, वही लोग आईईएस क्लियर कर पाते हैं. और इंजीनियरिंग सर्विसेज अब तो मिनिस्ट्री और रेलवे लगभग एट पार सी हो गई हैं सर. बट आई हैव सीन इन recent past that some young engineers who clear IES and join Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, वो कुछ समय के बाद वहाँ से छोड़ जाते हैं। और कुछ ऐसे केसेस भी मैंने देखे हैं कि अगर किसी यंग इंजीनियर ने अपने देश के बारे में सोचा, करप्शन के साथ लड़ने की मैं कहूँगा कोशिश करी और उसको अपनी जान भी गंवानी पड़ी। जो सतेंद्र दुबे का केस शायद आपको याद होगा जी, वो आईआईटी से पढ़ा हुआ यंग टैलेंट, और उसने जितना हिस्ट्री मेरे को याद है, उसने ये करप्शन के अगेंस्ट आवाज़ ही उठाई थी और ही वाज किल्ड एंड मर्डर्ड। सर एक मूव चली, जिन्हें नाज है हिंद पर वो कहाँ है, जिसमें सतेंद्र दुबे का जिक्र भी आया। सो माई क्वेश्चन इज, एक तो आप बता रहे थे कि आपके साथ भी उसने उस कुछ पीरियड के लिए काम किया, तो माई क्वेश्चन इज कि सतेंद्र दुबे का जब केस यंग इंजीनियर देखते हैं तो थोड़ा सा उनके माइंड में भी आता है कि मैं यार अपनी लाइफ को बचाऊं, मैंने सिस्टम से क्या लेना है। और कहीं ना कहीं जो कुछ देश के लिए कुछ करना चाहता है वो कुछ डीमोरलाइज हो जाता है। सो उसी सीरीज में मैंने कहा कि काफ़ी सारे लोग जॉब छोड़ के भी जा रहे हैं। आप इतने साल मिनिस्ट्री में रहे, आपका एक्सपीरियंस क्या रहा, और इस सिनेरियो से लोग कैसे निकल सकते हैं कि अपनी ऑनेस्टी और इंटेग्रिटी भी मेंटेन कर लें और उनको सतेंद्र दुबे की तरह भुगतना भी ना पड़े सर?
इसमें मैं आपको बताऊं, आज के दिन में मिनिस्ट्री छोड़ के जाने वाले ऑफिसर्स की संख्या बहुत कम है। वो ज़माना हमारा टाइम का था जब ऑफिसर्स यहाँ छोड़ के एटलीस्ट रेलवे तक भागते थे। एंड इफ आई से यू ऑनेस्टली, had there not been so many people quitting our service, I don't know, because in early part we never thought whether I will go up to DG or not. That thought came to after maybe 10, 12 years of service. But a lot of friends from our batch and immediately batches above and below left because they were thinking that maybe career will be better in the railways. So that situation is not now. And as you mentioned, the case of Mr. Satendra Dubey, incidentally, he worked with me for a very brief spell when I was just promoted to AC, and I think he was assistant engineer. And he was a very talented, upright, and very capable officer. What happened to him is very, very unfortunate and definitely exposes some weakness of our system. I should not say the ministry alone, but the system. It should not have happened to him. But I have also a feeling that it has not created any demoralizing effect on our young officers. It is demoralizing effect is not there, but the young officers who are coming nowadays, they are definitely very bright because competition in UPSC has become
Yes, yes,
tougher
yes, yes, yes,
year by year.
yes, yes, स्टूडेंट्स
It
बहुत हैं
is
जी।
our responsibility. I had also thought of and proposed and started little in that direction. But in coming days, their work profile need to be changed, and that change is possible by changing the ecosystem of the entire working condition in highway sector. If I will give you a small example, once I had gone to Seoul when I was a director in Indian Academy of Highway Engineers, um, to the Korea Expressway Corporation. In those days, that's 2019, Korea Expressway Corporation was having total around 8,000 kilometer of expressways. It's a small country, and that 8,000 substantially in operation, around 1,000 under construction, and maybe 1,000 under planning. But for such small network of expressways, they were having 250 PhD holders in their organization. And if you compare the total engineers in ministry, NHI,
Very
DCL,
far less.
is too much less. So we cannot manage such a huge system with so small a workforce. Integrity issues is definitely there. We have to tackle with that, but along with that, there are other reforms required in the functioning of ministry to endeavor or make contribution of our ministry in Viksit Bharat in the proper manner.
Sir, how can a young engineer remain ethical and fearless while working in this complex system, sir?
The temperament to remain ethical, not be lured by some easy money, comes from one's upbringing, value system, and fear for one's own respect. Some people value it a lot, and generally they're afraid if I do something wrong, what will happen to the name of my family, to me. But then there are some others who does not consider or who does not give that much importance. It is unfortunate that temperament, attitude, and values which one has, it's very difficult to change in either way in a latter stage of our life, say after 30 years, 35 years. But what is available to the government machinery is the enforcement by organizations in charge of integrity, and the departmental position of making the officer accountable throughout the working life. That way we can make them more responsive and remove this or minimize the issue of corruption substantially.
So, what future do you envisage for the civil engineers joining Ministry of Road Transport and Highway?
The situation which was continuing for such a long period, now seeing some reversal in the sense now some bridge cell has been created in NHI. Similar thought process is there in the ministry also. There is a growing recognition that the fundamental engineering cannot be neglected by the officers if we require true development of our national highways, meeting the international standards or at least the standards developed by us. So, for that matter, again, the focus is shifting towards the real engineering issues. And I believe maybe everything moves in a cyclic manner. After some years, we'll come back to again the old things. The talent is always there. People who come through UPSC, they have the talent, but they have to deal the issues in such manner which will benefit the lesson. And for that, of course, the entire ecosystem of project delivery has to change. The contractors have to change, the consultants have to change, the quantum of manpower we are deploying for a project has also to increase, then only that will be made possible.
Sir, superannuation for you seems to have opened new chapter, not an end. So after superannuation, what are your engagements? कहाँ कहाँ बिजी रहते हो? थोड़ा सा उसके बारे में सर बताइए सर.
In fact, I have not felt like superannuated. I am not working for any organization
Okay.
full time. But for the past month after I superannuated, I had a cataract surgery, and for 1 month I did not see or use the laptop. Otherwise, it has been a daily companion. I am working as a part-time technical advisor to Indian Road Congress.
Okay.
That takes maybe a week time in a month. I am heading one accreditation committee as a chairman there. So every month, maybe I hold one meeting for that. Apart from that, I am also convener of rigid payment committee, which is beyond the role as technical advisor, and that also takes a lot of time, and we have very big stalwarts of concrete pavement technology in the country, from academic institutes to practicing engineers to CRA scientists.
Okay.
And we are going to amend all the existing codes on concrete pavement design, construction, and rehabilitation maintenance. So that also takes some time. I have joined as adjunct faculty in IIT ISM Dhanbad. In fact, perhaps I could not tell you during this talk, though I entered engineering, I had still a lot of interest to be a teacher. Okay. In a engineering college. In fact, I was selected in one government college in my own state. But at that point of time, I qualified for UPSC, okay, and in the ultimate analysis, I joined UPSC. So that interest was definitely somewhere hidden in my mind, and when I received offer from IIT ISM Dhanbad, I could not refuse it, and I have been not giving much time, but at least a week time, a semester to them. Then there are certain works from the World Road Organization, that is PARC. So, as a vice president, I am executive committee member. There is one strategic planning commission. I am also a member of that, and a technical payment committee also. So that also takes some time. Like that, I remain, and some works for NHIDCL or this that. So I remain busy with many issues like that. I feel happy with that. But I decided one thing: after retirement, I will do only that thing where I feel happy in doing, and where there is respect. And I will never ask anybody for any kind of appointment. Whatever will come on its own, if it is acceptable to me, I will accept or not.
Sir, you just mentioned about Pyarak. Many firsts are attached with your name. जैसे कि मैंने शुरुआत में कहा, you are the first उड़िया to become DG of Ministry Road Transport and Highways, and you are the first Indian to be elected as vice president, sir, vice president of प्यारक, जो कि एक इंटरनेशनल बॉडी है फॉर रोड्स, रोड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की है, तो उसमें यू आर द फर्स्ट इंडियन टू बी इलेक्टेड इन प्यारक. सो वो एक्सपीरियंस आपका सर कैसा रहा जी?
It was the election process was very funny, to so to say. I was persuaded by present Secretary General IRC, Mr. Rahul Gupta. So he was a little associated with the PRC much before me. Uh, so I just submitted my nomination for the post of vice president. In fact, that very day the election was there, it coincided with the Shraddh ceremony of my late father, so I could not go. It was in Andorra, a small country between near Spain. It is somewhere near Spain. But Mr. Rahul Gupta attended that meeting. I had sent a request letter to the members all over the world who had voting rights, and somehow he followed it off with them, and I got elected. It was a happy thing. There are many things which we can learn from them, we can improve from them. I'm doing little bit. Perhaps there is more scope. Maybe my remaining 3 years tenure, I will devote more time to that.
सर उसी जो फर्स्ट की हम बात करते आ रहे हैं, मेरा ख्याल यू आर द फर्स्ट पर्सन फ्रॉम इंडियन इंजीनियरिंग सर्विसेज एज ए सिविल इंजीनियर टू बी एडजुएंट फैसिलिटी इन एन आईआईटी। तो जैसे आप बता रहे थे रिकॉर्ड शायद नहीं अवेलेबल, बट आपकी नॉलेज के मुताबिक यू आर द फर्स्ट पर्सन। सो बड़ी खुशी होती है सर ऐसे लोगों को मिलके जो जीवन में फर्स्ट और फर्स्ट ही रहते हैं। एंड यू हैव told me that why teaching is very close to your heart, so that is also encouraging. One last question I will ask you, sir. Today our engineers or students, they have lot of information but they lack knowledge. So as you are going to IIT also, so is it due to this transformation or some other issue? Lot of information they have, but they lack the knowledge. And how this scenario that is lacking the knowledge is affecting our nation and society, and how will it affect in future, sir?
You are very correct, sir. I find that the young engineering students from almost all streams, they are mad after AI, ML, deep learning, those kind of things, and a preference for the core engineering, be it civil, mechanical, is much less, which is not in the interest of the country as a whole. And the people who are in charge of the entire system, they are also not being able to attract the students to their respective core engineering branch. Probably it is beyond the capacity of any individual, but I should say that as a nation, our policymakers also, we have to plan that all branches of engineering have their own significance, and we must excel in all branches if the country has to prosper. So civil has also, although it is one of the oldest branch, but unless we have good civil engineers, we cannot expect bridges to last for 100 years or buildings to last for 50 to 75 years. So we have to take as a nation a very conscious call how to grow knowledge, skill, competency into engineers of all core branches equally.
From your experience, what would you like to convey the young engineers to how to handle the situation where technical judgments and administration directions are not matching with each other? So how they should handle?
I should advise the young engineers to increase their competency. What happen if I am strong in my subject? It gives me a lot of leverage to convince the other person that whether whatever he is telling is right or what may be the consequences of those direction. So first of all, handling something which you feel not correct is easier if you have adequate knowledge to handle the situation. So that's the first thing. And second thing, if sometimes something comes, you know it's not correct, one has to stand up to that and defend his position. Decision maker can always take any decision, but it is the duty and not duty to any individual. It is the duty to the nation to put things in the proper perspective, to put things which is correct.
Sir, what single message would you like to give young engineers from rural and modest background like yours who are listening to your podcast, sir?
I should say in the present day, there is a lot of difference what I had in my childhood, and there is hardly any difference whether somebody has come from rural area or urban area once he completes his engineering. I should advise all the young engineers or who has passed from the college and aspiring for a job, whether it is government job or a job in a private consultancy firm or construction firm, it makes no impact. Wherever you go, work hard, acquire knowledge, use your knowledge diligently in your work, and definitely you will go to the pinnacle of success, your name, and contribute to the development of the country.
Sir, your journey shows that civil engineering is not just about roads, bridges, or infrastructure, but it is also about integrity, institutional building, and lifelong learning, sir. Thank you very much for sharing your views. We hope for young engineers it will be very useful. Thanks once again for coming to Chandigarh and give us a chance to interact with you on our podcast channel, Gan Talk, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.